Button City is a charming new narrative-driven adventure game out this week for Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, PS4, and PC. Play as Fennel, a shy young fox who's new to town. Like any other kid, they just want to fit in and make some friends, but of course not without getting swept up in an adventure to save the neighborhood from a corporate giant trying to shut down the local arcade. Tapping into a handful of 90s era nostalgia, Button City is a cute story about community and friends with an even cuter presentation. But before we jump into the review, make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to stay up to date on my reviews. Only 10% of you watching are subscribed, so make sure you get subscribed. Fennel is a young and derpy little fox that just moved into town. Being the new kid on the block isn't always easy, and sadly that's also the case with Fennel. Despite having some trouble fitting in at first, you can't help but root for them as their positive and derpy personality is infectious and ever so charming. Luckily for our fox friend, he quickly starts to make friends at the local arcade where kids have formed little rival gangs to compete against each other in their favorite games. Things are finally looking up for Fennel, up until it turns out that the arcade is closing thanks to a giant mega corporation looking to take over the building for this world's equivalent of a Walmart. Now with the help of his newfound friends, Fennel and the rest of the neighborhood are determined to keep Button City open and save their town from the clutches of capitalism. Immediately the story and its characters evoke the Super 8, Stranger Things, and the Sandlot-like vibes of what feels like a nostalgic time now. The time of being a new kid on the block and just meeting friends by playing games either at the local arcade or at the park is gone now, yet this story still perfectly captures that era and its vibes. Perhaps it's a touch of being a kid when that was still a thing, but I found its characters and story to be wholesome and heartwarming, with a lot of parallels to something like the Hey Arnold movie. Button City's gameplay has a lot of exploration, talking to NPCs, and a ton of backtracking. The latter does tend to make the game feel repetitive and shallow at times, more than I'd like to see, but I found many of its other gameplay features to be fun and redeeming. You control Fennel as they wander around town talking to their friends and hanging out at the arcade. You can walk and press the action button to interact with objects around you. Sometimes that means just collecting the collectible trash off the streets and speaking to strangers at the cafe or just playing an arcade game. Considering you're trying to save the arcade, you'll spend a lot of time there playing the various cabinets in the form of mini-games. Suddenly your adventure game becomes an arcade racer or a robot MOBA, maybe even perhaps a DDR clone. The collection of different minigames you'll experience throw an appreciated wrench in the gameplay that changes up the usual dialogue-driven gameplay. When out exploring and talking to people in town, you won't see a big open world, rather everything is presented in sections like a little diorama depicting the different parts of town. It makes for a quick way to get around town, but also tends to lead to a lot of backtracking because of the mission structure. This is where Button City starts to drag for me. I mean, I love talking to my friends and reading up their funny and quirky responses to each other. However, I wasn't a big fan of the mission structure that felt like filler. So often missions would have me talk to one person just to deliver a message to someone else, and back and forth. Maybe someone needed a specific item, so I'd go back to my house, grab the item and come back, and then deliver it. That same mission structure kept coming up over and over again, that I was so grateful anytime anything remotely different came up, like doing a spy mission with some friends or making a lemonade stand, I'd immediately be happy. Outside of the main story, there are collectible items to find, pieces of clothing to collect, and side missions to elongate your playtime. Sadly, like the story missions, these side missions also fall into the trap of backtracking, with a mission straight up spending 15 minutes of my time going back and forth to check the weather on the TV for today, the next day, and the day after. Button City is presented in this low poly art style that feels like an HD remaster of a Nintendo 64 game. The characters are blocky, derpy looking, and absolutely adorable. Character designs look like they were ripped out of a long-lost Animal Crossing prototype, but despite the lack of voice dialogue and animation and speaking, the characters' faces and expressions do all the talking. I immediately fell in love with the design and the art style. The bright and vibrant color palette featured a collection of saturated colors that looked great on my PC, and equally as good when being streamed over to my iPhone via Steam Link. I played this on the PC for review and had no trouble running this at 4K 60 on my RTX 3060 rig. And while I couldn't test it out on consoles, I'm sure you'll have no trouble maxing this out on your respective console, whether it's a Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, or PS4. The gameplay's more laid-back approach and focus on story also made this an easy game to play on my phone through the Steam Link. There may not be any voice dialogue in this game, but wow does the music speak for itself. Button City has a great collection of quirky and upbeat sounding electric songs. It's lovely and it fits the simplified look of the game perfectly. Any fans of George and Jonathan will no doubt instantly fall in love with this game's music. Even when doing the more repetitive gameplay moments during the story, I couldn't help but find myself smile due in part to the music instantly putting me in a better mood. In conjunction with the funny characters and adorable art style, it's a perfect exemplification of a cozy indie game. Button City is a charming new adventure game with a lot of personality and cuteness to back it up. Its gameplay, like its blocky yet adorable presentation, is simple. At times the simplified gameplay becomes repetitive and can quickly show the shallowness to it. Luckily there's a handful of redeeming qualities such as the collection of minigames that freshens up the gameplay, the heartwarming story, and the pretty presentation that kept reeling me back in. It can benefit from some variety in its gameplay, or rather a lesser amount of backtracking. Despite it dragging a bit, I found Button City to be a fun and entertaining time, especially for any fans into the wholesome cozy games genre.